Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth, or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Now, mantra meditation has become a huge topic in North America, and gradually it is increasing in other parts of the world other than North America also. Particularly Africa is becoming increasingly attracted to the new American phenomena known as mantra meditation. Just like the McDonald's has spread from America, very bad example, by the way. But mantra meditation is also coming there in a big way. And I must tell you, whatever you say repeatedly is not a mantra. That's the English meaning they have made it out of it. It is the mantra, it is the mantra. So I have a very special guest. You heard him many times. So let us welcome Swami Muktanand Puri. Namaskar, Swamiji. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ramji. Thank you for having me once again.
So it's our honor. So one of the questions that comes is that the every mantra has a presiding deity or devata, yeah. And also, so what do you have to say on that? Because most of the people, they think anything which is repeated multiple times becomes a mantra.
Well, not anything exactly, but certain sounds can become mantras. But the basic thing is that the whole idea of this particular discussion is that we have done a lot of mantras, and the general concept is that people, when they look at a devta, they don't understand what a devta means. It is normally mistranslated in English as god or goddesses, which is it's a Western word, so it doesn't really fit the bill. We should say it like that. So this
Swamiji,
question,
just a second. Can you move your camera a little down? Slightly down.
yeah, sure.
Yes, perfect.
Is,
Perfect. Better.
is it better?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So the question which normally, very often we get this question, the question is that whom to pray to and for what? So there is this general tendency among people that they want to figure out which prayer should I do for what. So for example, for knowledge, they will go to Saraswati. For strength, they will go to Hanuman and all that. And so the mantra and the devta are both connected. Now the thing is that as we had earlier discussed, we had discussed about Brahm and devta. When we talk about Advaita Vedanta, we have this concept of Brahm. Brahm is what exists everywhere, and Maya is like a superimposition on it. It's like you can say like a shadow or a dream or like watching a movie on a wall. The wall being Brahm and the picture being projected being Maya. So, or if you want to understand, if you look at dimensions, so suppose we looked at the world and we said we have two dimensions. There are only two dimensions in one some part of the world, and in that people lived in that world and they were able to move only in two dimensions, which means they have the length and breadth or height, whichever you take, and within that they move. So when we looked at them, it would be very strange for us. In the same way, when you look at the modern world, the normal world, the Mayavi world, this world appears, it's like the same for a person who lives in bigger dimensions in Brahm. So it is just like a shadow falling on in that dimension, and therefore it is not considered as completely real. It is considered as neither real nor unreal. So this is the interesting thing about Brahm, but I won't go into Vedant because it is a difficult topic to understand. So basically, what is happening now is that when you're looking at the rest of the world, entire world, including the Devis and Devatas and everybody, they are all appearance. They're not there for real. So if you're real, then the Devta is real. If you're not real, then the Devta also is not real. That is the concept. Basically, when are you unreal? You're unreal when you have become completely realized. Then you understand that apart from Brahm, nothing else exists, which is not a easy task. Firstly, one has to understand what Brahm is. Then one has to try to become established in that state and hold on to that state. And third is living in that state. So it's a very long process. First, the first part being getting to understand it. Getting to understand it is not as easy as it would seem. So that is one of the issues over here. Now, when we look at Brahm is Nirgun. Nirgun meaning it is without any qualities and attributes. So it is kind of very difficult for people to worship a particular form which is without attributes. So they, like I had explained earlier, that when you look at the sun, and from that rays of lights are coming, and each ray of light is a specific kind of ray of light having a specific kind of energy. That is the way these mantric energies work. So each of these mantric energies has a devta, the devi or the devta, the divinity behind them. It's a form of divinity which has certain attributes or qualities. These are the qualities that we wish to imbibe in ourselves. For example, if somebody was playing very active sports and he was into very high risk taking sports, extreme sports, the devta for him would be somebody like Hanuman. Or if somebody was a warrior, he was going into a battle, he would go for Hanuman. On the other side, if somebody wanted to do some soft kind of upasana, some lady was doing an upasana where she wanted more compassion, then she would probably pray to Lakshmi or Saraswati. So one of the interesting things over here is that when people talk about a devta, they make one basic mistake, that they imagine that one devta is only one devta. Meaning that if somebody talks about Ganesh or Shiv or Kali or Lakshmi, for example, they think that one particular form of this god or goddess is the one and only form. There is no other form apart from what is visible to us. But this is untrue. Like when you look at Lakshmi, there are about 8 different forms of Lakshmi. Actually, they come up to 12 forms. They are normally called Ashlakshmi, but normally they will say different qualities. So there's this original Lakshmi, or known as Adi Lakshmi, who is there from the start of creation. Adi Lakshmi is the one who gives us the possibility of attaining moksha or attaining liberation. Then there is Dhan Lakshmi. Dhan Lakshmi is a form of the goddess which gives wealth. Then there is Dhanya Lakshmi. Dhan Lakshmi gives grain, food, agriculture. Gaj Lakshmi. Gaj Lakshmi is the form of Lakshmi which gives us animal wealth. Then Santan Lakshmi. Santan Lakshmi is a form that gives progeny, child, or children. Then there is this next form which is known as Veer Lakshmi, sometimes also called Dhairya Lakshmi. So Veer Lakshmi or Dhairya Lakshmi is for strength, courage, valor, patience. Dhairya means patience, so for patience as well. Then there is Vidya Lakshmi. So normally when we are talking about knowledge, we always think of Saraswati. We think, oh, we must do the Saraswati mantra. But then if you look at knowledge, knowledge is also a wealth. So here they're pointing out that there is a form of Lakshmi called Vidya Lakshmi, who gives us knowledge. In the same way, then there is Jaya and Vijaya Lakshmi. Normally, Jaya means glory or victory, or it also, if you look at it in a deeper way, it also indicates certain qualities we may have, such as tenacity, grit. So these are the other qualities that we have. So depending on which form, which particular aspect you need, you will be doing a prayer to one of these forms. One can do a form of prayer to Mahalakshmi, which encompasses all these 8. But when you do a specific form, then that specific energy is invoked. So this is the interesting part. Of course, apart from that, there are other 4 forms known as Saubhagya Lakshmi. Saubhagya Lakshmi means Saubhagya can be understood in 2 senses. One is good luck, and the other is in the sense of becoming pregnant, of a woman becoming pregnant. So here it applies for both, for a person getting good luck as well as having a good family life. Then there is Raja Lakshmi, which is a form of Lakshmi which is for the rulers, so that you can rule. So it is about splendor, which she has. And then in the same way, there's Aishwarya Lakshmi. Aishwarya Lakshmi is about the individual person's you can say, sphere of influence, or the status of the person in society, or the splendor in which they live, and the way they are sort of known in society. So these are the different kinds of Lakshmi. Then there is another form called Vara Lakshmi. Vara Lakshmi is the one who gives boons. So these are the 8 plus 4, 12 forms of Lakshmi. 8 are normally taken. Normally they will replace one of them. For example, they will remove Santan Lakshmi and then put Aishwarya Lakshmi, or Veer Lakshmi will be removed, and they might put Raj Lakshmi or Saubhagya Lakshmi or somebody. So there is always different, depending on different schools and traditions, there is some slight difference in them, but usually these first 8 which I pointed out, which is Adi Lakshmi, Dhal Lakshmi, Dhani Lakshmi, Gaja Lakshmi, Santan Lakshmi, Veera Lakshmi, Vidya Lakshmi, Jaya Lakshmi. These 8 are the normal ones which are counted. So these are the 8 forms which are there. Now, which is why when we are speaking about the form of prayer, the question comes in when people say, oh, should we pray to this specific form or should we pray to that specific form? Then the question is that each one form has got one form, one Devta itself has got many forms. For example, if you look at Ganesh, Lord Ganesh has got some 92 or 96 different forms. Of these, there is somebody had tabulated around 32 different forms. Then it has 6 main sampradayas. Then in 6 main sampradayas, there is a system of prayer for all these 6 main sampradayas. Now, what normally happens is that when we are doing, say, let me tell you some very interesting history. When I was younger, about some 25, 30 years back maybe, I used to literally laugh at the Hindus sometimes. I would say I was like brought up modern. So some of the things I found funny, you know. So I would laugh at them. I would say, oh, these people are so funny. They will pray to the river and they will pray to the trees and what is the meaning of this and so on and so forth. What happened with me was that I had this teacher by the name of Tatamri Baba. So now he was my guru at that time. I was under him and he was giving me different kinds of prayers and different kinds of sadhanas to do. So during the sadhanas that I had done, one day he calls me and says, this is the sadhana for Narmada Ma. Now, Narmada is a river in India. Narmada, Yamuna, Ganga, these are the rivers in India. So he gave me this sadhana and I was like laughing at people already so that, you know, these people are so crazy, they are praying to rivers. Now, since Guruji told me to do this, there was no way of getting away and I didn't want to disobey him. So I decided to obey him as is, you know, supposed to be and did that particular prayer. One of the things I observed is when I started doing the prayer, initially in the beginning, the sound of the river changed. There was some subtle change which I was not able to place my finger on, and I started praying later on, and continued with that prayer. Later on, with time, time passed, I realized that this particular form. So in India, we look upon a lot of things as a form of a representation of a energy, of a certain energy. So this is the representation of a certain energy. This energy has got the what we call tattva over there, water. It's a water state of element, but the water state of element at the subtle level. At the subtle level, that element is what we are, you can say praying to, or that we are invoking. Rather, we are not only invoking, but also inviting to come and sort of increase our strength and energy, because the Devta has got a certain energy. Now, as I had explained once before, when we are doing a prayer, when we pray to the Devta, we pray to the Devta not as if the Devta is external. Initially, maybe in the beginning when you pray, your prayer is that as though the Devta is external. So it is like God exists and I exist. But then later on, there is, God is my father and I am his son. That's sort of, or it's like the Devi is my mother and I am the Devi's son. And so you have a closer relationship. Then finally comes a stage when the Devi and you, or the Devta and you, are one. So when you're praying, all the attributes of the Devi and Devta, the actual system of praying is at the slightly higher level. And when people do understand is that the Devi or the Devta and you are one. So when you are praying to them, you're basically praying to this energy which is inside you. This is a specific energy which you want to invoke, which you want to build in yourself. So Brahm is attributeless, and Brahm is what can, for the sake of understanding, is not God, because the concept of God is different. But let us say, for the sake of understanding, temporarily, we can, so people don't get confused, we can term Brahm as God. But actually, when we say God, it means Ishwar in Hindi, in Sanskrit. And Ishwar, when we look at Ishwar is within the scope of Maya. So actually, Ishwar also exists and doesn't exist both at the same time. So this is exactly what is there with the Devta. But since we exist, and therefore the Devta does also exist, and therefore when we are praying, we are trying to pull this particular attribute to us. So people would often say, in Madhya Pradesh, where the Narmada River mainly flows from Madhya Pradesh to Gujarat, a lot of the sadhus will say, oh, Mom, Narmada, she looks after you like you're her own child. And actually, when you start praying to her, and it's very interesting that people who do these prayers for Ganga or Yamuna or for Narmada, they are the ones who find Siddhi, perfection, very fast with the mantra. So it tends to give them that particular realization and the energy invoked, it functions in full force. And you find that whatever you need to do, a lot of these things start getting done. One of the peculiar qualities in the case of especially the goddess in the forms of the rivers is that she'll give you a form of compassion and love and kindness, because this is a water tattva, water element. Element is the wrong word actually. State of subtle matter is what the right term should be. So this subtle state of matter is the one which is invoked in you, and it brings about a particular change in your temperament and gives you a particular softness. So in the same way, when we pray to these planets and other Devis and Devatas, these Devis and Devatas again, they represent certain forces. These forces are within the parameters. You can say actually they are beyond the mind, but within the mind also. They are the forces which will take you to the borderline of your mind and beyond the mind eventually. They won't go along with you beyond that, but at a certain stage, they will take you to the border of this line, where, for the sake of understanding, we call it a line, where Brahm is. And at that border level, eventually you go across with knowledge. So this is how the system works. Now, one of the other interesting things about this whole process is that we have something known as Kram Diksha. So I think I may have explained this earlier also, but when you're doing a mantra, for example, if you suppose you have the Gayatri mantra for knowledge, and then you have one has the Saraswati mantra, and then you have the Saraswati Bij mantra, and you have a longer version of the Saraswati mantra, and then you have in Gayatri also there are 4 kinds of Gayatris over there. One is short, ek pad, dui pad, Tripad and Chatushpad. The common one which we do is the Tripad Gayatri, which most people will repeat. So, with the number of syllables, akshar, the energy in the mantra and the seriousness of the practice, the time of the practice, everything increases. So, if people remember, if those who have seen this show before, I had mentioned that when you're doing this practice, you should start with a very simple mantra. When you're doing a really simple mantra, then what happens is that in a short while, 6 months or say 8 months or 10 months, you will be able to perfect this mantra. So it's like a siddhi, the mantra is perfected. Perfected means that the energy of the mantra is with you now. But one of the things which is happening is that, of course, I understand that Westerners like to keep things a little simple, so they get a little confused when we talk about the Devta. But the fact of the matter is that the Devta has certain energy, and so these are on one level, on the subtle level, one will understand as they exist. On another level, they are those forces within you. On a third level, they're a tool also. They're a tool for you to be able to perfect and reach a certain level. So one of the other things that one can usually find is that, like for example, now when we go to Bhairav, so there are different forms of Bhairav also. There are 8 Bhairavs. There is a Bhairav called Asitang Bhairav, Chand Bhairav, Ruru Bhairav, Krodh Bhairav, Unmad Bhairav, Kapal Bhairav, Bhishan Bhairav, Samhar Bhairav. Then apart from that, there are additional forms of Bhairav. For example, there is Batuk Bhairav, there is Kal Bhairav, Akash Bhairav. So there is a whole list of these. There would be easily about 40-50 of them. Then there's Swarna Akarshan Bhairav. Now Swarna Akarshan meaning the Bhairav who attracts gold. Now this particular form of Bhairav is basically a form of Bhairav it's a parallel sadhana to Lakshmi in a male form. Similarly, a lot of people will not know, and this is interesting. Recently, I was trying to do some research on Kali, and I was very stunned to find out that there is a form of Dhan Kali. There are almost, when I research, they write that there are 8 forms of Kali or 12 forms of Kali or 32 forms of Kali. But it turns out there are some 46, I could count 46 forms of Kali. And I'm pretty sure I must have missed out some at least 6, 7, 10 more forms. So there'll probably be more than 50 forms very easily. And there's a whole list, and each one of them, each form of Kali has a mantra. And then, like I had explained before about Kram Vidya, which is what I was talking about. So now let's take Dakshin Kali, for example. So in Dakshin Kali, in the Kram, they have 5 mantras. They start with a small mantra. It's basically like if you had to go to a gymnasium and you start trying to build your body. If you go there straight away and someone gives you 100 kgs to lift, you will not be able to do it. So they give you initially 2 kgs, 3 kgs. Once you start building your muscles, then they give you 5, 7, 10 kgs, 15 kgs, 20 kgs, 25 kgs, 30 kgs, 40 kgs, 70 kgs, 90 kgs, 100 kgs, 110 kgs. So you reach that level where you can lift up 100 kgs very easily because you've been slowly building your muscles. In the same way, the mantra also has a certain energy and a perfection. So when you've done the smaller mantra, the Bij mantra, and then a combination of the Bij mantra, and then a combination of the Bij and Akshar, for example, and then something longer than that. So you have had a certain perfection of that energy. So you have a smaller energy, then a bigger energy, and you have the discipline also to do. So this is one of the processes which is there in mantra diksha and in mantra sadhana, mantra upasana. And one of the other things that is very important when we are doing these sadhanas is that we have to understand that when we are looking at us, so there are these specific forms. Like for example, when we were speaking of Lakshmi is a relatively soft and gentle form. But if you had to take up somebody like, for example, Unmat Bhairav or Krodh Bhairav, Krodh means anger. The Bhairav who is in the form of anger. So now you are a warrior or you have to go for a battle. And at that point in time, this Krodh Bhairav is the one which is the one you need because you need that fire of that energy of fire. So you have to be in a fiery temperament to go and fight. So that is a time when you will invoke this particular month to do that. So 2 points here. One is that the Devta basically has a certain energy. That basic energy can be invoked, and that basic energy will give you what you need. Uh, you know, in the sense that suppose you are doing something for wealth or for knowledge, so you can invoke Saraswati or Lakshmi. But there is another aspect to it. The other aspect is that you are a devotee of a particular form of god or goddess. Say, for example, here in Kali, they have this Srishti Kali, the Kali who creates, Sthiti Kali, the Kali who maintains, then Samhar Kali, the Kali who destroys. Then they have Pralay Kali. Pralay Kali is the one who completely destroys the whole of the creation completely. And then, then she will recreate it when it's Srishti Kali. Now, normally you will have heard of the Dakshin Kali. There's Dakshin Kali and Vam Kali. Vam Kali is the same picture. In some pictures, you will see a right hand is on top of Shiv or on the corpse. And in some cases, it's the left foot which is on the corpse. Now, the corpse which is there is indicative of Lord Shiv, because in the Tantric philosophy, the male component is inactive. He's away. He's the power holder. He's the one who holds this power. Who is the power? It's the Shakti, it's Kali in this given case. So if you reverse the picture around, then you see she's emanating from him and she has nowhere really to keep her feet except for him. And the other ground which she's keeping her feet on, this ground is basically, it indicates the ground of consciousness from where she emerges and then she goes out into the world to create. So each particular form of a god or a goddess has a very deep representation. For example, when we look at the skulls, the necklace of skulls she is wearing. So the necklace of skulls indicates the different life, the cycles of life which we go through. We take birth and then die, and then again we take birth and then we re-die and rebirth and re-die. And so this cycle continues. And this is indicative of the numerous births we have. Her open hair, for example, indicate Maya. The fact that she has this skimitar in her hand, which is used for, it's used for cutting avidya away, which is the lack of knowledge or darkness or removing ignorance. This is one of, so each part of that particular representation has a meaning. Now when you look at the her holding the head and the blood falling, so it is our karma, the karma that we do. And when this blood forms, if you have heard the story of Raktaj, the blood forms on the ground and another demon is born. So it is basically like desire. You have one desire, and then when you finish that desire, there are many more desires born. And so the only way to dissolve the desire is to finish the desire completely. And that is what she represents there by cutting the head of the desire, the cutting of the head of the desire also, and drinking up that blood, meaning that not allowing new desires to come up. So every form of the Devi and the Devta has a deep representation. Therefore, when you're doing the mantra, in the initial period of the sadhana, the mantra itself is enough. But later on, as you go deeper into it, one will find that the Devi or the Devta is also a very important tool for the person to be able to work with the mantra. That is one of the other very interesting parts of this. And finally, they have this question of which devta invokes which mantra, which is which power, you know. So I've already spoken on this. There are many forms of these devtas and devis which are very fierce. There are others which are very kind. So normally people will get attracted to that particular form of god or goddess, or of devi or devta, which is which goes along with gels with their personality. Once they find that this is more suitable, then they try and make that. That is the isht. Isht meaning the desired one. Actually, ishta actually means, people call it main, but ishta really means desired, that which we desire. This is the desired one. This is who we want. And so when we desire that particular one, he is the one we mainly desire, because this is my main desire. This is who I want. This is what I want to become. This is who I'm striving to be. This is the personality I want to give myself. And so that is why this particular form is your isht, and you try and take up his or her upasana. When you take up that upasana, again, you pick up the form which you need, and you try and do the upasana which suits your temperament, you know. So this is the basic connection between the devta, the mantra, and the mantric power.
So thank you, Swamiji, for explaining the Devta connection, and also the Western propaganda against Devta, because there is when you call it I call it the illogical monotheism superiority which the West exhibits, in which they claim that monotheism is better than other things because they don't know much. And monotheism doesn't just means that the church-based belief system, that is Abrahamic, and they've simplified it to such an extent that they also cannot explain the other aspects of it. So the drawback of that kind of mindset is that a person is not able to figure out themselves also, and the mental diseases are increasing because of that. See, for everything else we need variety. Like, for example, we cannot wear the same shirt every day. And I'm not talking about sannyasis like you, because you wear for the
We are lucky.
we are lucky you don't have the confusion. But for the rest of the people, they cannot wear the same shirt every day. They cannot wear the same shoes every day. They need some variety every day. And the nature has variety. There is not just one kind of fruit. There is not one kind of colors in the sky. In the morning right now, the sky is orange. Evening also it becomes orange. And when the clouds are there, it becomes slightly bluish orange. And so there is a variety everywhere for a ordinary manushya. But for the monotheistic guys, they reject the variety while they live in the variety. So it is like a hypocritical way of looking at things. So in that context, the Devta concept is not understood by them. And when some of the leaders of Sanatana Dharma introduced the variety we have, that Krishna tells Uddhava that Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagwan iti Shabdate, that you can understand me as Bhagwan, Brahman, or Paramatma. All three ways you can approach me. Now, that concept is not understood by them. And also the concept of soul is minimized. Like, for example, the Jewish community, in their core beliefs, they believe the Jewish soul is special than any other human soul. And in Christianity, they don't assume that. They think that even today, it's a very commonly held view that women don't have soul. And in Abrahamic, in Islamism also, a similar viewpoint of that their soul is separate. Once anyone becomes in their community, then the soul becomes special. Now, that concept is gone away when you look at the Sanatana Dharma, where every soul is special, and there is a concept of spirituality in the form of Paramatma also. Now, where does the mantra meditation fit into the logical side of it, the Sanatana Dharma viewpoint of view?
So actually, the thing is that when we talk about the word soul, it's a Western concept. It's not a Hindu concept.
Correct.
When we say Atma or Paramatma is the same thing. It means Brahm. When we say Brahm, there is only one soul basically. And the rest of them it's like a projection. So if you look at the Advaita Vedanta philosophy, it's a projection. So there are, all these, it's a projection of material, which is sourced by the same power, is running because of the same power. So it's like, let's say that on Earth there are many different plants growing, but they all grow because the sun shines on them. If there is no sunshine, they won't grow. So this is one of the interesting things about this. So therefore, this part is not there. As far as the mantra is concerned, the mantra when we look at the mantra, it's a vibration basically. Now, when the creation takes place, at the most subtle level, the first thing that occurs is the vibration. This vibration is eventually when it gets a sound called nada. I had explained this earlier. In the nada is unstruck sound. So this unstruck sound has a particular, sound to it, and these sounds they start with Om, and then from Om emanates all the other mantras, and this can be read in the Aksharamala Upanishad. One can go and read that in the Aksharamala Upanishad. So there in detail they explain, and then they explain which particular mantras fall in which part of a subtle body and how they invoke a certain specific energy. So, and then each of these, the process of the mantra is because this particular person, I had explained in Diksha earlier, that it contains certain components. One component of that is that when you're doing a mantra, the mantra has to be given by the Guru, because that is where the power of the mantra is. So that is one of the interesting things. And by itself also, it has some power. But the power fully comes in only when you get the Diksha. So that is where the mantra gets its power from. It gets it from a conscious source. The consciousness is imparted to another being who is ready to take that consciousness. I had explained that it is almost like giving, money. It's like if your father is a multi-billionaire and he gives you a couple of million and says, start a business, and then he sees it grow. And then when you had 1 million, you came to 10, and then he says, okay, here's another, 10 million for you. And then he reaches 20 or 25. And then he says, he's taken it to 50. So he says, here's another billion for you. And so he progresses fast. On the other hand, if somebody is not taking Diksha, it is like when they are doing the particular mantra, then what will happen is that the mantra will work slowly. It will not give the desired results. It might work against you and all kinds of things. So therefore, when you get Diksha, it works properly and in full force, and it gives the right results, and the results the way we want them to get, come.
Thank you for clarifying that. And also for the viewers who are asking me questions, like many viewers have asking questions. The oversimplification of spirituality in the Abrahamic cultures is actually not the right path, because even though spirituality is the most simple thing, because you can be spiritual anywhere, but it's the way it is explained, and also the concept that spirituality is very difficult. It's for specific or special individuals. What do you have to say on that?
Actually, in the modern world, let's go back even if you don't go back, if we just look at today's world and we go into an agriculture society, say even in the United States, where people are into agriculture, if you pick up a person who's, an ordinary person who didn't study, who lived in a small little village, or he had his land and he's happy growing his stuff there, you bring him into a city, or or reversely, you bring some city people to him. And then when you're standing and you're interacting, you will straight away see that this man is left out. He's basically, he may be to some extent intelligent, but because he stayed in that society where he's not really been able to develop his mind unless he was particularly active or he was researching or doing something. But if he's not really doing that, he's a country bumpkin, as people say, then he's so far removed away from what is happening. So let's say go to a small little village somewhere in Africa, and we find a tribal. This tribal person, their mind, they may be living a nice life in their own way, but their mind is not developed the way a modern person's mind is developed in the modern world. So so for these simple people, there is a simple way of doing things. You give them a simplified thing to do. But the problem is that in the modern world today, we are not, satisfied with simplicity. We are used to tackling and studying and seeing very difficult issues, very difficult, complex problems, studying all kinds of complex things. So this oversimplification, which is there, it is good for a country bumpkin. It is good for a lazy person who doesn't want to put his mind in. But for somebody who's studying, who's intelligent, who wants to challenge his intelligence, who wants to rise, improve his intelligence, he would like to do something much more complex. He would like to get answers to his questions. He has a lot of queries. So therefore, this oversimplification in the modern world today is not a very, it's not a successful form, and that is the reason why one finds a lot of dissatisfaction with such oversimplified, systems. So my understanding is, and also when, like for example, Sri Vidya, when you look at the prayer in Sri Vidya and the amount of energy one has to put in, and that's the kind of thing which is many of them are suited for the modern person who can find time for it, who's devoted to it. If somebody is not devoted and they're doing it part time, they want to do a little bit of it. They still want something which will work fast for them. They still want something which intellectually gives them, satisfies them with why they are doing it and what is it going to give them. So modern society wants that their questions should be answered, and the answer should be logical and sensible to them.
Thank you so much, Swamiji, and thank you for all the viewers for watching it. And do comment on the video, let us know your feedback, and we'll do the next session, another similar topic connected to Paramatma, Atma, and meditation with Swamiji. And thank you for all the viewers on the East Coast for joining in such a large numbers, because it was a long time I did a live show on this channel. So thank you so much. Namaste, Swamiji, and Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram to you and all the viewers.